Hello Groveland. Today's video is being done on May the 15th, and I wanted to take an opportunity to talk about an issue that you probably saw in the Citizen or have heard perhaps on Facebook, and we just wanted to let you know what the issues and the facts are on it. More than likely, you probably saw an article on the May 4th Citizen that talked about the Township Eyes battery storage system. This is an article that we gave to the Citizen because we wanted people to know that we had been approached by one of the battery companies on it. And then if you notice, the next week, there was also an article that was in the Citizen, and this one is labeled Township Board Takes Aim at Solar Energy Ordinance, and this one's in Brandon. They're really the same basic issues. So let me tell you what's happening and why this activity is taking place right now. Last October, the governor in Michigan and the legislators passed a public act called Public Act 233. That bill was passed and it takes effect November of this year in 2024. And the purpose of the bill was to allow the Department of what we used to call the DNR, now called EGLE, to be able to oversee companies that want to install commercial grade solar systems, wind systems, or what they call battery energy storage systems, or BESS, large commercial batteries. And all three of those are covered by the same bill, although most of the discussion, like the article on Brandon indicates, is around either solar fields or wind fields, and they also cover in that same legislation these storage batteries. There are a large number of storage batteries of this type all across the country. There's about 10 states doing the same basic thing. And there are various sizes of these BESS, they call them BSS systems, in various places. And in Michigan, there's two of them, but they're both smaller, not large commercial ones. They were specific to backing up systems that the utility companies use, one on a lake, and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but there's a couple. But there are currently efforts by Vesper Energy to try and locate one in Groveland Township, because there's none in Oakland County. This would be the first commercial grade one over 50 megawatts if it's approved, and two more that they have farther on the west side of the state. And if you're familiar, if you've ever looked at the ITC power grid corridor that runs through our township, it kind of comes from the west side of the state, comes up through the middle of the state, right through Groveland, and carries on north and goes up north quite a ways in Michigan. That main corridor power line has some rationale for wanting to use these storage batteries, because the companies that make them need to find a high capacity line that's not fully utilized. And basically what they do is draw current off of the line when there's excess capacity that they can store in their batteries. And then later when the utility companies need more current than they can make, they put it back into the line. So they have to have a line that isn't at 100% capacity to be able to kind of do that put and take process on it. They want to put one in Groveland Township, and I will have to say the site that they picked is probably about the best site I could think of if this goes through. And so these articles were released, so one, you would know that we were being approached, and two, we have a session coming up on June the 3rd at 5:30 at the training center at the fire station on Dixie Highway. The company that wants to put this in, Vesper, is going to be here to talk about their systems and answer some questions that people might have. Now let me tell you what's happening so you know why all of this is moving fairly quickly right now. Because the legislature wrote the law last October and it takes effect this November, if we don't introduce any kind of legislation to cover some of those systems, we will be stuck with whatever EGLE decides the rules should be. And I've done some extensive research now since I was contacted by Vesper. I've worked with both the legal firm that the Michigan Townships Association is using, as well as EGLE and the people at MSU that were hired by EGLE to help write the first ordinances on it. And they've done a pretty good job, I think, from what I've seen so far. It's got quite a few of the issues covered on it that I think makes it reasonable. But when I look at it, I actually think there's 2 or 3 areas where we could go beyond what they have. And in order to do that, we have to have an ordinance in place before the people at EGLE have theirs in place, or we're going to deal with whatever they come up as the answer. I have been involved in this township over the years numerous times, as you probably know, in trying to help preserve the issue of home rule for our own communities. In the past, I've testified 3 different times up in Lansing on behalf of the Michigan Townships Association to maintain our control over sand and gravel mines, because I think it works just fine, and we don't want Lansing or those people to be able to take control away from us. We're more in tune with what happens here. It's the same issue. There's some people right now that are trying to put a petition around to get on the ballot an opportunity to try and stop the effort by the state of Michigan to take over the control of these energy systems in the future. I don't know if it'll be successful or not, but hopefully they're going to try and have a vote option on it for this upcoming election. We want to make sure we have the ability to put some extra constraints in there that we can't if we don't do anything. In addition, while this might seem kind of hard to understand, Eagle has also started a grants program to encourage communities to look at these systems. And ironically, their grant program expires September 29th, just before the law goes into effect. So we have a very narrow window of time here to operate on this. We either do our data gathering, come up with an ordinance, and put it in place before then, or we wait until November and deal with whatever we're going to get stuck with, but we don't have the ability to change it. Now, the reason they put this grant program in place is, just so you know, the township stands to gather $1.5 million grant from Eagle if we do this and get one authorized and cited before September 29th. Not necessarily built, but approved and a plan in place. I have talked to Vesper several times and told them some of my concerns, and I will have to say they have been exceptionally accommodating in the requests we have. There are some of the distances that are done by Eagle in their draft that I think need to be larger, and they seem to be very accommodating to that. We'll see how it goes as we continue to discuss it. But the reason this is being brought to the forefront, as I said, is there's a time window on it. We either do it now or we're stuck. And what I told Vesper I would do is, I don't want to try and deal with all the issues on wind, all the issues on solar, and all the issues on the different type size BESS systems, because they have small and medium ones as well as these large ones. I would try and facilitate an ordinance or a special land use permit for this site only to make it work, so that we don't open up a proverbial Pandora's box to everything else. And they seem to be pretty receptive to that. So while we continue to gather information, we think we got a pretty good understanding now on what the issues are, and we'll be looking at those. I'm also going to try and get the lady that was hired by Eagle to write the ordinance draft for them last year to come out and do a presentation for us. And when I get that information, we'll put it on the township sign out front and let you know, so that the person that's on the government side of this trying to create the environment will be able to answer questions for you as well. And I will say that she has been exceedingly accommodating in my discussions with her and helpful in understanding the issues. And when I told her a couple of things that I wanted to change and increase the distances on, I could tell that she was pretty pleased with the changes I wanted to make. So we're trying to whittle it down, get it in shape for an ordinance, try and get it in place before September so that we have the ability to put the extra constraints on it. And just so you know, this isn't something where we went out and approached them. The energy companies come to us based on whatever demographics they go through. The piece of property that they're looking at in Groveland Township is kind of ideally suited to this, because one side of it backs up to I-75, another side of it backs up to the ITC corridor, and these facilities need to be right adjacent to the corridor to minimize the connection service to them. There have been a host of improvements in them from some of the early ones, and these are the kinds of issues that we're ferreting through and investigating right now. So if you want some additional information on it, beyond what was in the 2 citizen articles, feel free to come to the meeting on June the 3rd at 5:30, and you'll hear what Vesper has to say about their system. If I get confirmation that the person at Michigan State University that was hired to research this and come up with the rules comes in to do a presentation for us, she offered she would. I just don't know what date for sure yet. When I know it, we'll put it on the sign out front, and you can come in and ask her questions, and we'll see where we end up at the end of the process. But that's the real story behind this, so you know. Anything else you've heard is probably some fictitious dream or somebody's anticipation of what it is, but there's appears to be a very good way, from what I've seen so far, to do safe installations, protect the integrity of the community, and these things tend to be fairly non-obtrusive because nobody is at them all day. They're in a fenced-in facility. It looks very much like a small substation to some other facility. It's fenced in. This is going to be in the middle of a wooded area. Nobody lives on the property. There's nobody even relatively close to this facility if it goes in. So I wanted to let you know that's what it is. If you have questions, feel free to call. But I pretty much told you everything we have on it right now while we continue to research the remaining issues on how an ordinance might be created. Thank you, and I hope you have a great day.